What's up, students? Today we're going to start with, or I'm going to start with going through each belt and adding, we're trying to get through the entire belt in one video, just as a reference. We'll do some walkthrough stuff, a little bit slower pace. This way you guys have something to work with while you don't have me at your disposal a few times a week. So let's get to it. We're going to start right with yellow belt and get into delayed sword. Delayed sword is a technique that is developed for a couple different reasons, but for me, I like to look at it as it's teaching me about checking, what to do with my left hand, because you don't find this in a lot of arts with checking, okay? We utilize that a lot, and some of those checks will drive right into an offensive move. So again, I've talked about this before on the long form 1 walkthrough video about economy of motion, okay? So that's really going to coincide with each other. So delayed sword starts, I'm facing 12. My opponent grabs my left shirt here, okay? So my left foot goes in a straight line backwards. And my right hand, if it's at my waist, this is the point of reference for thrusting, would thrust from a straight line from point A to point B as I block here. So my elbow is bent at a 45-degree-ish angle, and my left hand is checked about my own hand distance away from my stomach. Okay? I don't want to be too close. I want to be far enough away where if I do get hit here, or I block a punch from here or a kick, it's not going to drive itself full force into my stomach as if it were against my stomach in the first place. If my arms started from up here, as if somebody pushed me, then grabbed me, or we're arguing and I put my hands up and say, hey man, I got no beef with you. My hands are up, that's point of reference for hammering. We have hammering, thrusting, and whipping, okay? So if we're here, it's the same thing, straight line from point A to point B. Here. So I'm in a nice right neutral bow, stabilize my base, my heels are down. I would slide back, and I take my front foot with my hand. So my hand is now preloading at the same time as my foot. Now technically, we're not stopping here. We're rolling through this as I kick to the groin, knocking the head into me. I plant, turn my hips as my heels hit the ground, and chop out towards the neck, keeping my left check where it's supposed to be, about a hand's distance away from my body. If I was to do it facing the opposite way, 1, 2, 3. Side, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And at just a smoother speed, if I was going, let's say from up here, that's delayed sword. Okay? And when you're done with a white belt technique, you can take your front foot and cross over the rear. That's called a crossover. Then I'm on guard. Okay? Next is alternating maces. In this technique, we'll kind of take a lot of the same theories as delayed sword as far as my stance work, creating distance by stepping away from my opponent. But now it starts to teach you, well, what if I don't check? What if I was to load my hand at the same exact time as I'm blocking? So rather than 1, 2, 3, my left hand doesn't do anything but guard my body. What happens if this defense is now moved into an offense? Okay? So here, we're getting pushed, 2 hands to our chest. So my hands are up. And from this position here, I'm in point of reference for hammering. So as I slide back, you'll notice I do the same thing as delayed sword, except from my left hand goes into a chambered position. And if I was to draw a straight line from my fist to my opponent, that'd be the fastest way to get from point A to point B, but it's just a straight line, and that's a direct strike, okay? Now granted, in the technique, we're gonna be doing a vertical punch to the solar plexus, causing him to come forward, okay? We have some opposing forces going on there because he slams into my fist that I end up with in the technique. So number 1, we're up here. I drop back, same way, delayed sword. I block with my 45-degree inward block, and here's my left hand ready to go. And now as I turn, I'm going to take my hands and just grab against the arms and anchor my elbow to my body. That's going to take his arms and move them right into me. Say, bring them into me. So there's an opening between his biceps right here that my fist, my vertical punch is going to fit into. Now as I throw this fist, I have to turn my back foot into a forward bow. One, because if I'm in neutral bow, it's easy for me to roll over the blade of my foot with some resistance. If he pushes into me or drives into me, or I just bounce into a thick body here that weighs more than me, even the same weight as myself, could knock me back. So I plant this foot forward so my heel's driving me into this punch, okay? So that's 2. And now my left hand will replace my right hand, and as it does, it just goes into the same place. So right in front of it, and my right hand loops. Well, it kind of loops around my hand, but once it gets here, it just goes into a straight line. And I back knuckle. I'm using the foreknuckle, the 2 top knuckles in the front here, or the back side, but the 2 top knuckles, okay? And that's striking to the temple, maybe the maxillary hinge, okay? So we start putting it together, it looks like this. 1, 2, straight line, forward bow, 3, replace. So 1, and now my hips are facing forward, so they unwind back to where I started my neutral bow, as that catapults out. Not unlike me throwing a frisbee or having a whip in my hand. Okay, if I was to do it from the side, 1, 2, anchor and drive into this punch with my forward bow, replace my check, 3, as I unwind back to neutral and strike. You can see I kind of have this opposing force. My right hand goes out, my body turns away, catapulting this into my opponent, like a whip. The more dynamic you get, the harder that strike's gonna feel, okay? If I do it from the backside, 1, 2, 3, okay? This is a whipping strike, a snapping strike at the end. So the definition of a snap is when I throw it out, it must come back just as fast or faster. I don't want it to get trapped up there. I want it to be right back where I started. This way, it's now a defensive move. I'm protecting my body. I was able to strike and bring it right back and defend. Or throw something else if I want to, okay? So that's alternating maces at just a brisk speed. That's it. Again, from here, I cross over and out. Okay, now we're on number 3, and we have Sword of Destruction. Sword of Destruction is built on the same concept as the first 2 techniques. I'm creating some space between me and my opponent so my head is not in the line of fire anymore, okay? Because the late sword, they're potentially just grabbing me into a punch. Alternating maces, they might be pushing me and followed by a punch or a kick. So I gotta create some distance, okay? Same thing with this technique here. I'm dropping away from my opponent, but the difference that he's doing is you take this another level. We had a grab, then we had a push, and now we have somebody grabbing stepping in with a roundhouse punch. So it's creating a circle between us. So that circle accelerates and accelerates until it gets to my head, which is what we call the apex. If I'm swinging a baseball bat, the most powerful point is going to be right in front of my body with that ball. Okay? That's where I'm going to have the most power. It's building up as it gets to the ball, hits its peak, then it dies down as the swing goes. Now don't get me wrong, it still can hurt you anywhere in that circle, it really can, but this is the most powerful spot, okay? So I'm getting my head out of the way by following my hips. My hand goes into a circle, so it's my right hand into an extended outward block. Here, if you look at this block from the side, it's extending away from my body, but it's not straight. There has to be a bend to it. That's called margin for error, okay? I have more likelihood of blocking something, a punch coming on a horizontal plane, this orbit here. If my arm is not on the same exact plane, it's easy to go over or under. But if I bend it, it can hit somewhere in that line, okay? So extended outward block. So I'm here. I slide back, and as I go, my right hand goes to a circle. And I don't want to make a huge circle. I'm doing this for effect so you guys can see on this little video, okay? But I'm just making a small circle as it spits out. My left hand is right where it was for delayed sword, a hand's distance away from my belly. I slide back. Now, for delayed sword, my arm was in, so I threw an outward hand sword. But because my hand is out this time, I throw an inward hand sword. So it's like a brother and sister technique. They're family related. So 1, my hips go away. 2, I slide back into that cat stance, continuing into my kick. And watch, when I kick, my right hand opens, it's ready to go. And now when I land, I use my marriage of gravity, my weight coming into the strike, as my hand chops into the neck. Still in a good right neutral bow here, okay? I'll have to do it from the side. 1, make sure there's a bend in that elbow. You don't want it vertical, but you don't want it straight, so in between is good. 2, I slide back, open my hand. 3, I kick and chop. Okay? If I knock his arm away when I block, so I'm here, it's okay to retract this hand in a point of reference for hammering, so I get so much more depth penetration on this strike. Well, not depth penetration, because that would be how deep I go through the target, but I just get more range to throw this. I can generate a little bit more power, okay? But if you're doing this real fast and he's pushing with that arm around that corner, I gotta keep it there so I don't get punched in the face. And I track right down his forearm, right down his bicep, right up his shoulder, right to the neck. And I could even shuffle in there and grab some space, some power, some backup mass as I move through that technique. Let's do it from the backside. 1, 2, open my hand, plant, and turn my hips. Marriage of gravity, rotational force. Of course, when I'm done, my right foot can cross my body out because I'm on guard. And now I'm ready to go. I've changed angles from my opponent. Okay, number 4, deflecting hammer. Deflecting hammer takes up the defense to another level, or the attack to another level. Now I have somebody kicking me in my belly. So if I'm facing 12 and that kick is coming straight at my belly, if I was to back away like I've done on the first 3 techniques, and they extend that foot out, I'm gonna get hit with that foot. Or if they would throw a kick, and like we do in brown belt and the 3rd degree and 2nd degree brown belt, I get punched in the face if they throw a punch. So I wanna get off the angle. So if I'm facing 12 o'clock, my body's gonna shoot to 7 o'clock or 7:30, okay? So I'm gonna shuffle. Now when I shuffle, if my toes are facing 12 to start, when I shuffle, I'm in a neutral bow now facing 1 o'clock, because that's where my opponent is. He's on this angle from me. My toes should still face forward. If my toes face my opponent, it's like I'm tightrope walking. I have no balance on my tightrope, okay? So I want my feet to be neutral with the corner, with 12 o'clock, or neutral with my opponent facing 12 o'clock, okay? So as that shuffle is happening, now remember, he's kicking, and I'm gonna block at the same time. So there's gonna be a gap between us because I use a foot maneuver to get away. So number 1 will look like this. Shuffle as my right hand is dropping into position with a hammering downward block, okay? My left hand is gonna go into a chamber position because I'm gonna utilize my left hand, not as a strike, but as a pressing check or pinning check, okay? So 1 looks like this. Look at my toes. They're still facing the camera. They're still facing 12 because my opponent is now at 130. It's the corner of the room, okay? So I'm here. And now I got this gap between us. We're gonna call this bridging the gap. I'm gonna build a bridge between us. So I shoot forward. Look at my toes. They're still facing the camera. And as soon as my body sets in place, my left hand goes to the front and grabs the arm. And as that happens, my right hand goes into chamber. So I have a bracing angle. My right foot is sideways to my opponent, okay? So I have this nice pad holding me forward. I have my left foot driving onto my right foot, onto the blade of my foot. So I have an immense amount of stability here, okay? Everything is going forward. Also, if you look at my hand, if I was neutral, I'm staggered. If I go into a forward bow, it's like my left hand gets about 6, 7, 8 inches longer because I turn my hip and my shoulder forward. So I gain some distance. Now here's the rule. On the outside of an arm, I grab at or above the elbow. If I grab below the elbow, his elbow can hit me. And I will do these with a person too, I'm alone at the school, so I figured I'd record some videos for you guys to have as a reference. But I know it'll help with a body, okay? So again, we have 1, feet's facing 12. My eyeballs are facing my opponent. I shoot forward, and I turn to a forward bow as my left hand grabs at the elbow, or just slightly above, and I pin it to his body. I press it into his body. When I do that, it drives him just down a little bit towards me. And my right hand's loaded. I chamber typically means I get to throw a strike. So that's why I do it at the same time as I do my pinning check. And as he starts to come into me, I unwind and I throw an inward horizontal elbow. And both my feet go back to facing 12. I'm toe heel alignment facing 130, and my elbow crashes right into any available target on the right side of his face. Okay? I'm trying to go for the jaw, trying to go for the temple. Okay? So if I start to put it together a little bit, we have 1, 2, bridge the gap, and turn and grab as I chamber. There's 3 moves: forward bow, pinning check, and chambering all at the same time. And now all this tension in my legs are created from here, from this position. So I release that tension as I strike. My hips drive the short range weapon. The shorter the range, the more power into my opponent. Okay? If I was to change this and face 12 o'clock here, that becomes my 7 o'clock, and I do the same technique. 1, I shift forward, turn my body into my opponent, pin the elbow, pull it down, his head comes into me, I unwind as I throw an elbow. Okay? If I do it facing this way, 12 o'clock, there's my 7:30. 1, 2, 3. Here's my front leg, I cross it over. And I'm done. That's number 4. Number 5, we take this into a rear attack to capture twigs. We have synonyms in Kempo to help us, or help the younger kids remember some of these weapons, some of these body parts and things like that. We try to make the names fun. So capture twigs. Twigs are my arms, okay? They're capturing my arms, okay? I guess I could just call it capturing arms, but it's just not as colorful and memorable for children, okay? So they grab my arms like this. They're pinning them to my body. They might pick me up and throw me. That's the idea here, is they want to grab me by the hips, grab me by the arms, and lift and just drop us to the side. And then get on top of us and start pounding on us. So if somebody wants to pick me up, I need to cancel that by dropping my body weight down to the floor. That doesn't mean they can't pick me up, because as soon as I settle in my base, they can pick me up. But economy of motion dictates that I do multiple things at once. So if I do multiple things at once, I get to drop, check his height by dropping, and striking at the same time. So that window of him picking me back up starts to shrink, okay? So I'm here, I'm stuck. I'm gonna go out to my left into a horse stance to 9 o'clock, and as I do that, my left hand's gonna do what we call a crane, and it's just gonna grab anything that I can grab with my fingers. If I can get deep enough, I'm gonna hook his hands inside this little hole right here, and that is a bird, a crane, okay, and I hook it. If I can't do that, then I just get my fingers around there. And if I use my fingers, I always do a monkey grip. If I use my thumbs, then my grip becomes a lot less powerful. So I want to hook deeper with just my fingers. Okay? So we have 1. And I'm striking to the groin, to my opponent behind me. 2, I'm going to take my cat stance facing 3 o'clock as I bump him away from me. My left hand's checking. There's that hand distance in front of me. My right arm is doing like an obscure elbow, but it's really just a check. My palm goes down towards the ground, and I create this vertical line so he can't rewrap his left arm around my back. I'm not elbowing here, I'm just protecting myself with a check, okay? So I have 2 checks at the same time. My cat stance brings me up away from his center line so I can see the area a little bit clearer. Okay, it's hard for me to see all this stuff that's happening when it's behind me, so I move up the line. So I have a bit of a better view from here. And now my right foot is going to stomp his foot if I can find it. If it's there, I stomp it. If it's not there, I just plant my foot back down to my neutral bow. And as I do that, my right hand drops down low. And now I'm going to look back to 12 o'clock as my hips turn, and here's my elbow. It's going to drive up under the chin. So that looks like that check we had before. But it just goes to show you that some of our checks, some of our positions can be defensive or offensive. So we do that same position 2 times right in a row. The first time's a check, second time is a strike, okay, with my elbow. So we have 1. Of course, I'm looking over my shoulder. 2, I'm driving up. This is a check, this is a check. He can't grab me. His right arm is coming around the front, I'm stopping. I could be grabbing his wrist if I want to. I plant in this space. Here's a hidden move. If I want to hit to the groin here, causing his head to come forward, as his chin's flying towards me, I unwind right under the chin. So now I'm in a horse stance facing 12, but my eyes are going over my shoulder. Okay? If I do it from the side, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a big technique for white belts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, if you're a child, you don't have to do all these techniques together. I mean, all these moves and the techniques. I typically just want to see a block. So if it was, this technique is my example, we'd have a block. I technically have a block here. This is called a pinning check or a pinning block, and a strike. So this is the technique. I'm looking, I'm grabbing, and I'm shooting. It was delayed sword. I'm blocking, I'm kicking. You're coming forward, so you might as well throw a chop, but you don't have to. Okay? So all your techniques, some type of block at the beginning of your technique, followed by a strike, and we're good to go for the children's classes. Youth, I'd like to see you guys do the whole technique. Okay, now we are into grasp of death. When the word death is used in the technique, that technically means that he could potentially choke me in some fashion, okay? This is really hard to choke somebody from a grab around the head like this. I know it may not seem that way as a beginner. You're like, well, of course that's a choke. It's not really a choke. You could probably choke somebody that doesn't know how to protect themselves in any fashion, but when you learn a little bit of martial arts, you learn that it's more of just a headlock or a neck crank, which is super uncomfortable, and it's very easy to be put in a very bad position from there, okay? Or somebody grabbing you around the neck and dropping you to the ground, and now they have you on side control or a Kasagatame in judo, where they can easily break an arm or get into a really nice choke from there or punch you in the face. So we don't want to be there, so we're going to protect ourselves. And because it is uncomfortable, we're going to take our monkey grip and wrap it around his wrist. His right arm is going around my head. It's like an old schoolyard punch move, right? They grab you around the head and pull you into a punch. So I'm going to re-grab and pull his forearm off my neck. I'm going to take my chin and turn it to the side. This way my throat isn't lined up anymore on the forearm. If he was a lot stronger than me and still pulling past my pull down, right? The forearm would be rubbing on the side of my neck, which is still uncomfortable, but I can breathe, and that's what's important, right? You don't have to worry about having a blood choke when they're only squeezing one side, because my other side is free. His forearm can't wrap around both sides. It don't work that way. If he has me in a triangle choke with my shoulder sticking out, then it would, but in this technique, we don't worry about that. So I'm grabbing, and I'm anchoring, because I'm so strong when I anchor. When my arm is away, I don't have as much power, because I'm just using my shoulder versus my back and my shoulder when I put it to my body. And I step in because he's pulling me forward. When I do that, my left knee becomes a check, okay? My heel's off the ground, which drives my knee forward. And when my knee goes forward, it digs into the back of his right leg. And if he's trying to turn to punch into me, but I'm driving my leg, turning him towards 9 o'clock, he loses the ability to punch with his left hand with zero power. I mean, there's just no power, okay? So I'm here, I'm grabbing, I'm anchoring, I'm turning my chin, I'm stepping into the pull. He's pulling me forward. And my left knee drives into the back of his right leg. And when he starts to turn, I have access to the backside. So I put my hand here. If you're a child, I grab the inside of the leg and squeeze and turn. It's a horse bite, like somebody biting you and twisting with your teeth. If you're an adult, we're going for a chop between the legs, the groin. I peel by taking my hand, coming from behind his leg, up the side of my head, and pulling his arm over my head. I'm holding on to his forearm and to his wrist with my right hand. And I use my left hand to lever down. I never use my hand here because I don't have what we call margin for error. I want my block as big as my block can be. So I use my forearm to push. His arm is going from 3 to 9. My forearm goes from 6 to 12. That's margin for error. And I pull and I push as I step in a straight line. Do not take your foot and go around his leg, because he can collapse on your leg and take you back. So I step straight in. My left hand replaces my right. You're going to find this a lot with what we call contact control. I control. And now my right hand is at a chambered position. And I just go into my forward bow as I punch. Sometimes it's okay to break your heel off the floor. This is one of them. Because if he's on the ground and I just go into a forward bow, I'm going to be about a foot away from his head. So I lift my heel, drive my knee forward as I punch right behind the ear. It's a big technique. So here it is again. Grab, anchor, step, chop. My chin is turned. Comb your hair. I peel the arm away. I'm controlling his wrist with my right hand. I pull it to my body, and my left hand pushes. Push and pull, opposing force. And I step straight forward, locking his arm across my hip. He comes flying right around this circle. My left hand grabs, my right hand drives down as I go into a close kneel, as I punch behind the ear. And now in this case, my left foot would cross over, and I'm on guard, and I've changed angles from my opponent. I do it from this side. 1, 2, peel. Maintain your posture. Use my forearm to push and my hand to pull. Trap, forward bow, or close kneel. It should be close kneel. I punch, and I'm back up, and my left foot crosses over. If I'm facing 6, I grab, I look, I step, I chop. Over, step, straight line, repin, and punch. And I'm out. Okay, now we're on number 7, checking the storm. Somebody's coming from 12 o'clock with a step-through overhead club. A club is a stick. I'm not even going to grab one. You guys know what a stick is, right? And they're trying to hit me on the head, so it's a vertical circle, a vertical orbit. All right? So in this technique, just like I did in number 4 with that kick coming straight here, in this orbit here, or this straight line coming from 6 to 12, I don't want to just move back, because if that stick is longer than I realize, I'm going to get hit. If that kick is deeper, because the thrust of it deeper than I realize, I'm going to get kicked. So just like that technique, I must move off the line. We've already figured out how to go this way, shuffling to 7 o'clock. So now we're going to change the angle a little bit. Now my angle is going to go to about 3 o'clock. Sometimes you can go to 3:30 depending on how aggressive they are. But in a perfect world, we're just going to go to 3 o'clock and just learn this technique. So I'm going to do a side shuffle. And as I shuffle, watch my hips. They're going to turn. Okay. As this happens, my right hand's going to go across the center line. I'm protecting my head. This is checking the storm. It's not called grabbing the storm. Okay. So I'm going to check. And look at my head. I'm turning my head. I don't want to get hit. So I'm slipping as I do that. And now as I bring the left side of my body into a cat stance, one, I want to make the width of my body as small as I can, because if that stick blows right through my hands and breaks my hands or hit my hand, my leg is next if it was out here. I don't want it to be closer to that orbit of that stick. I want it off the line. But economy of motion, again, dictates that I do multiple things at once, or have different or multiple concepts in the same move. And this means I am getting out of the way, I'm making the width of my stance shallower as I check with my second hand, and I also get to load for a weapon. So I'm preloading at the same time. That's economy of motion 101 right there. Okay? So we have 1, I parry or check. Okay? 2, I'm going to slide my left check right into position. I'm timing this so it goes right by me. I might have to hit that hand and push it away, then it would become parry. Otherwise, I'm just checking. Okay? And now it's like me taking my belt off and swinging it in a circle in front of a kick bag. And your goal is to kick the bag without the belt hitting your leg as I swing around. That's what this stick is doing. If I'm up here and you're fast enough, kick me. But you don't want to kick me with my arms here, because you're going to get hit in the leg with that stick. Let my arm go across my body and whack right to the groin here. I'm picking my targets. Okay, using accurate timing. I step away, I check as I come into this kick, looking at my target. If the arm is passed, right to the groin. If I hit to the groin, his body weight comes forward, puts him on the knees. There's a lot more weight on the forward leg. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is take my left foot and step to 9 o'clock. That's called a twist stance. Now I don't want to twist so much where I can't get my right leg out. Just a small twist. I mean a wide twist, so I have this line of action right here. And from here, I'm going to raise my knee and turn my hips even more. As I do a knife edge kick to the inside of the right knee, buckling his leg, he falls down. My right hand, if you paid attention to where it was as I threw my kick, look at my right hand right here. When I kick and plant, it kind of comes to my body kind of comes to this. So now it's preloaded on the inside of my body, which means I have an inside chamber, I throw an outside strike. So when I lift my knee and strike, I fall down towards my opponent, his back knuckle smashes him in the head. He's on the ground on his knees if I hit him right, okay? That's the ideal phase of the technique. So we have 1, 2, plant, twist. This twist might even be going to 830, okay? Knee up, kick, bring it back, and drop. And here, back on guard, right leg will cross over, and I'm out. Let's do this from the side. Do it from the back side. Cross out. Okay. Getting down to the end here. Mace of aggression. This is a grab on your lapel with 2 hands, and they're pulling you in. Okay. Now they may not pull you in. Okay. That's kind of a what if. What if they're grabbing you in, pulling you in? What if they're just grabbing you? You have a few different options, but in this technique, we teach you to bridge the gap. It's kind of a prelude to the next belt. If they're not pulling you in, okay? If they are pulling you in, let's say that you're in a t-shirt and they're grabbing your t-shirt and they're pulling you forward. You going back isn't gonna do anything but rip that shirt. You're not gonna get away unless you're really lucky, okay? We wanna utilize that force. The harder he pulls me in, the harder that our bodies will clash together. Now, if I'm smart enough and I'm aware of my situation, I can utilize that crashing with a punch. So I'm not getting my face smashed into his. It's like 2 cars on the highway smashing. It's my fist smashing his face. So the harder he pulls, the harder I crash into him, hopefully with my strike. So his arms will grab me. One of the first laws we learn in Kempo is somebody grabs me, I re-grab. Whatever the attitude, so is the response. They grab me hard, I grab just as hard or harder. Okay? So I'm hooking over just like I did in Capture Twigs here, over the top. And as I get pulled forward, my right hand is going to go into a elongated circle right to his face. I called it an elongated circle because I don't want to make this big loop. The bigger my circle, the more time it takes to get to my opponent. So I kind of elongate it. Okay, it's coming off the side here, like this. So we have 1, and my hammer fist goes right to the side of the nose. And when I hit with my hammer fist, I turn my fist at the same time, or at the very last second. And what that does, we call it a corrugated punch. It takes my knuckles and goes across whatever's there. If it's the bridge of the nose, if it's the eye socket, whatever I can get through the cheekbone, I grind right past, okay? Again, I'm filling dead space because my right hand is going to go across the body. So my right hand goes to his right side. Because I did that, it allows my hand to grind across his face. There's economy of motion again. I'm doing multiple things in the same line or the same circle or in the same time, all right? Here, he's gonna go like this. He's stretched away. I'm hanging onto his arms. So I bring him back to me. As I bring him back, it has another use. He's bouncing into me. So I collapse my elbow by bringing him back, chambering, and now my elbow just makes another short circle across the face. So I go borrow force, because he pulled me in, causing him to come in again. My elbow smashed across the face. And when I throw this elbow, incidentally, it lines back up for an outside elbow, or an outward elbow. I'm pre-chambered again. So I just unwind with my elbow to the face or the chest or the neck or the chin, whatever I can get to, okay? So we have 1, elongated circle. 2, chamber. My forearm's going across his arms. Don't stick your elbow between his arms because when I come to chamber, it's gonna knock his hand out right into my face. So forearm flat against his arms. Elbow across the face. Across the jaw, whatever you can get to. As he goes away, he can't go too far because I'm holding on to him. I might shuffle forward a little bit, create some closure between him and I, and throw out my elbow with an outward elbow and come back in. I'm doing it forward. I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Cross out. I'm done. We're good to go. Okay, number 9, attacking mace. This is against a step through right punch. That means he's standing in a left fighting stance, and his right leg drives all the way forward to punch me in the face. And it could be, an overhead punch, or I wouldn't say too far overhead because then we'd be into a different technique. So it's a pretty straight punch, but it could be horizontal, this way. It could be vertical if you're fighting somebody that's got a little bit of a martial arts background. Either way, they're taking up a whole bunch of distance with this foot maneuver. If I'm here and I shuffle, I can get about half a body width forward unless I make this really big push drag forward. But if I step through, I gain a whole bunch of distance, at least the whole body's width, right? So that's what they're doing here. So as they step through, I take my right foot and step back. So I went half of his distance, which lines me up right at his elbow, okay? So here, I'm not gonna take this arm when I do my inward block and raise it up and come across, because there's that big circle. Big circles equal big trouble, okay? Because it's too much time. I want to connect the dots. The fastest way to connect those dots is from point A to point B is that straight line. That's just the fastest way to do it. It don't mean we always go in a circle. always go in a straight line. Sometimes we'll go from a circle, but that's usually after we've thrown a straight line. We usually go line, circle, line, or circle, line, circle, okay? So as I step back, straight line to my target. My right hand is chambered. I'm in a neutral bow, a left neutral bow facing 12. And I block that elbow, and I don't want to hit it so hard where I turn him all the way around, okay? I want to turn him around enough where I have access to his ribs. And then from here, I throw a horizontal punch to the ribs. Typically below my shoulder, it's going to be a horizontal punch unless I'm fitting it into a specific target like the solar plexus, okay? I'm blasting him right in the high ribs. And as he's bouncing away, my right hand's going to re-grab his wrist. So I'm going to forward bow because, again, I want to make my right arm longer towards my opponent. I want to be able to get it to the front to grab, okay? Setting up my back leg for a kick. So 1, 2, forward bow. We have a triangle here. That's going to trap his arm in that space. 3, quickly I'm going to re-grab, so I go clockwise around and grab anything on his arm, his shirt, his jacket, his wrist, his forearm. And I'm going to slide down and jerk his body towards me. Because if I blast you with this punch, or you blasted this person with the punch, they're going to stumble back unless they're really big. And if they're really big, that's okay too, because I'm set up with this kick. Okay? It's like a fail-safe technique. As I grab, I jerk in, and as I do that, my left hand comes to chamber. I'm safe now because I'm canceling out his width, his ability to turn into me, and his height, his ability to kick. Because I'm jerking him past my hip towards the ground. I throw a roundhouse kick in that space, right to his ribs, to his stomach. And as I plant my right leg down his leg, and my left hand's chambered. I'm in a right neutral bow facing 12. I'm going to pivot into a forward bow as I punch him in the kidney with my horizontal punch. So I'm pulling his arm, grinding down his leg. He's turning away from me. I have his back, and I drive this into his kidney or spine, whatever I can hit, whatever's a straight line from where I am, from my chamber. Okay, back up. 1, and boom, right in the ribs. Before he's gone, I grab. If I couldn't grab from here, I would just come up with my kick anyway and come back and maybe punch in the face. The technique still works. We just call that a what if. What if he's gone? Okay. So 1, 2, grab. Pull. 3, plant and grind down that knee, turning him a little bit as I punch to the kidney. Okay. From here, I would cross over. Other side. 1, 2, 3. Left hand's chambered. I'm pulling. And 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, number 10, the last one in white belt is sword and hammer. The name of this technique tells me what I'm doing. I'm throwing a sword and then a hammer. I'm doing this because I'm learning to fit my weapons into their target. This person's on my side, which we call a flank. They're flanking me. And their left hand is grabbing my shoulder. So what I do is I use my left hand to pin his left hand. Because if they grab me, I'm going to grab back. If they grab me hard, I'm going to grab hard. Whatever the attitude, so is the response. What I'm looking for, or I should say, what I don't want is their hand to be on my shoulder and they punch me in the face. So if their left hand's grabbing by the shoulder, they could be pulling me into their right punch. So that'd be me doing this. Whack right in the face, okay? Typically, when you see people throwing punches, their hand's by their waist, their hand comes up, and they throw a punch. So it kind of makes like a candy cane or a J, okay? That's good. It's not good in the sense that it creates a lot of power. So if I'm not fast enough or I'm not aware of what's about to happen, they're going to knock me senseless. I have to be aware of what's happening to have any chance to get past this technique. My hand's by my waist. It'd be the same thing as me going to chop him in the throat and me doing this. At that point, when he's doing this, whoever's faster is going to knock the other guy out, right? I don't want to just be faster because I might not be faster. I'm getting older. I'm not as fast as I used to be, right? So I have to be smarter because I can be as smart as I need to be in the situation. And this guy could wind up on the wrong end of things because I'm just smarter, even though I'm slower. So what I want to do is grab, and my hand stays at my hip. As his hand is raising up this kind of circular motion here to throw this punch, I'm launching into a straight line. Because what's faster between point A and point B? We've already talked about it. It's a straight line. That's the fastest we can make something, right? So from here, I'm re-grabbing, and as I'm doing that, my right foot is locking into his foot. So if he's standing the same way that I'm standing, maybe staggered a little bit behind me, my right foot steps right into his instep. Right into the arch of his foot right there, which I guess is the instep, right? So I'm stepping into a neutral bow, and as that's happening, I'm grabbing, looking at my opponent, and chopping right to the neck. So not this, the neck. And as their body gets bowed backwards, my right hand changes from a sword to a fist, and I sink into my stance, dropping my weight down, matter of gravity, as I hit to the groin, hit to the bladder, hit to the belly, hit to the solar plexus. Whatever is on my way down from there, I'm going to hit. Preferably lower, because from here, and I just go to the solar plexus, yeah, I'm dropping my weight, but as for me, like 185 pounds is not a ton of weight to drop into somebody with such a short range, right? So if I'm here, if I can drop down to the groin, I can generate a lot more speed and momentum. Marriage of gravity, it's going to pull all that down, so I have a little bit more space to work with. So I'd like to go to the groin, or I'd like you to go to the groin if you can get to it. So 1, 2, drop. Okay? 1, straight line. 2, drop. 1, 2, drop. All my weight into that strike, and my right foot crosses back. If you're a child, same thing here, just the first move. Check, which is my block. Step into my position as I strike to the throat. If you're a little guy or a little person and somebody big is grabbing you, you probably can't do this and reach to the neck, right? So I'll just use my chop maybe to the ribs, right? Maybe I would just take this back knuckle and go to the solar plexus here. Or maybe I'll just do a hammer fist right to the groin, okay? What I'm telling you is just drills, and these are only drills. Some of them might not work. If you did it on 5 different people, they'd work 5 different ways. It's just a starting point. You've got to change the way you do your techniques as the situation arises around you. I can't predict what's going to happen, okay? But the more Kempo you get, the more you practice this stuff, the more you're going to find all these different moves and all these 10 techniques will start interchanging like a puzzle. Imagine if you had a jigsaw puzzle where any piece can fit anywhere in the puzzle at any time. They're all the same color. You can't mess up. You start to realize, boy, I can put this piece over here, even though it fits perfectly over there too. You know, well, maybe there's a reason why it fits better over here today. I don't know. The sunlight's better through the window. I don't know what it is. But every situation will allow you to use these different moves interchangeably as you see fit, as you're not breaking principles, you're not breaking concepts that'll keep you safe and things like that. So that's it. Work on these and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.